Woohoo, we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's installment of Harmony TV. I'm super excited to be here with my assistant, Kristen, who keeps me on track, and she always has really great questions as a part of the show. So thanks, Kristen, for being
You're
here.
welcome.
And today's broadcast was supposed to be about something, but in my free Facebook group and in my masterclass that we have just wrapped up, we are in the last like 28 hours of it being open, the Art of Mastery, which is in conjunction with a course that I have just opened called the Art of Mastery. It was formerly Hormones in Harmony and the Hormone Mastery Collective. So it's been lots of different names, but it's the same course for sure. So I'm so excited to be here because I had many women reach out and talk to me and ask me about rage, depression, and anxiety. That these are some version of these three words is something they're experiencing in midlife. And I just want to say this is very common. I hear this a lot. This happened to me. This is something that I have definitely changed in my health over the past 9 years since I turned 40. And it's possible for you to change as well, at least to shift it if it's something that is wreaking havoc on your life or making you uncomfortable or making your relationships with those around you a little bit trickier. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what they mean, and I'm going to give you some action steps as to how to shift these. So first, let's talk about what they are and what they mean. So we've all had moments of anger where someone says something or someone is in our presence and they enrage us with some sort of, sentence or a thought or conversation. That is not the same as rage. Rage is slightly, in my experience, and I did have some rageful events in my early 40s. What rage feels like is an uncontrollable anger that you cannot calm yourself down. You can walk away, but you still want to be rageful. You likely are louder. You are likely saying things that are way more intense than you've ever really said in the past. I'm thinking of, marriage or in your relationship, your, work relationships or your partners, whatever it may be. That's rage. Rage isn't just like honking because someone pulled in front of you. Although road rage is legit and real, I too experienced that as well in my new home of Texas because people have big cars and they drive really fast here. Way faster than they do in New York, which I didn't think was possible. So that is rage. Depression is something very different. Now, there's a lot of people who talk about depression in the clinical sense, and they have definitions of depression based on from a psychological perspective. And obviously, there's some overlap here. And what I'm not saying is that anyone should come off any kind of medication or go against anything their doctor says. But there are elements of depression that happen because of our hormonal shifts, the cascade that happens in midlife. And that's the kind of depression I'm talking about, where, one day, like the sequence of 24 hours can really shift your emotional status and how well you're able to cope with everyday life and stress. And sometimes for a lot of women around around the part of your cycle that would usually indicate ovulation, there's a big hormonal shift happening at this time in your cycle. There's a lot of women that feel a 24 to 48 shift of a deep decline, which can bring on sort of weepiness or sadness. And I don't know, ladies, if you've ever had one of those days where you feel incredible love, and then that love goes into incredible sadness, and then somebody does something and tries to make you feel better, and then you have unbelievable amounts of love and compassion, and you're excited to be. It's sort of like that emotional roller coaster. So that's what I'm talking about here when I talk about depression or depressive like feelings. It's not bouts of depression for long periods of time. It's more the rise and fall of the mood, right? And then the last one is anxiety, and I think this is quite possibly the most common because I think it's the least there's the least stigma. It's the least taboo to feel is anxious. And it's a very, very common element. I too still even have moments of anxiety where things will definitely make me more anxious than they ever have. And I, of course, I carry myself through a process that helps me with my anxiety. These moments of anxiety, I've never been diagnosed and don't have anxiety, but there are moments where something triggers me into an anxious, like one thought leads to the next thought leads to like the worst case scenario. In that case, we really have to carry ourselves through mindset work. But I'm talking about anxiety that is sort of debilitating, crippling to where you can't enjoy your life. So that's the kind of anxiety I'm talking about here. And all of these three fall under some sort of psychological component. But I would like to expand the conversation today and really talk about these particular tendencies around moods, elevated or exasperated moods, and really talk about it in the sense of the physiological response and how to alter it, how to take the sharp edges off both the top and the bottom, and how you can do that for your body, for yourself. And before I go into that, I want to talk about the last component of this free masterclass I was talking about at the beginning, the Art of Mastery. So this is a masterclass I've just completed in my group, in the group called the Art of Mastery. It's a free masterclass. It's a 3-day extravaganza, 3 hours of me talking about all the things, right? I have this course coming up called the Art of Mastery. Imagine that. The masterclass and the class both called the Art of Mastery. And what I talked about in this masterclass, today's discussion is like an extension of the masterclass. Actually, we should probably, Kristen, put this into the masterclass group now that I'm thinking about it. So just throwing that out there. The element that I want to say about this is the reason why I feel passionate about this is because in these 10 years leading up to this portal, this transition period of wisdom moving out of their mothering years, right? Certain glands and certain organs start to quiet down, and we move through this portal, this transition into a very wise, very centered, very grounded period of our life. Some women call it menopause, some women call it priestess, some women call it the crone years. I don't really care what you call it. It's just a necessary, and it's a rite of passage for all women, whether it's self-induced, whether it's through having some kind of procedure or some kind of disease, cancer or something, or the natural progression of menopause. But the point is leading up to this transition, what's really important is understanding how to support your body through these transitions so that we, as I said, we take the sharp peaks and the very, very deep valleys, and we kind of desensitize to those really intense moments, so that as we move into the years when our hormones really do shift, if indeed bioidentical or hormone replacement therapy is something that you're interested in, and I think it does benefit a lot of women, it's something that it's not the panacea, right? So this is where on day 3 of the masterclass, we talked about bravery, stepping into that bravery component, really fostering and cultivating a very brave sense of radical responsibility and learning what to do for yourself instead of waiting for the diagnosis, right? Waiting for the debilitating or chronic condition or symptom that is actually the thing that sends your body into a spiral, right? So these years, these moments before this happens, what we want to do is we want to support the body. And so when I'm asked about these 3 conditions, I'm asked, how do I help myself? The first thing I want to say is food plays a massive component. If you know me, if you followed me for 5 seconds, Kristen will attest to this.
Food. So not food.
I know, right? Not food. That can't be it. Food is enormously important to this stage of life. What you eat and the way that you prioritize your health in terms of, gathering your own food, cooking your own food, and then eating your own food. So it's a 3-part commitment. Not to mention digestion, how you chew, how well you assimilate those nutrients. These are all things I talk about in my new course, The Art of Mastery. I go way deep into the food component. But the lead up to these years is enormously important. It begins with food. And these foods are incredibly important for supporting the body nutritionally. If the body isn't supported nutritionally, and there's a lot of different elements to nutrition, food being the most basic and the most solid aspect of the foundation. then one has to look to supplements, herbs, or some sort of therapy to replace the minerals and nutrients that are lost either through digestion, either through the detoxification process, or some sort of disconnect within organ reserve in the way that your digestive system is working, right? Is this making sense so far, Kristen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, so the first thing I would tell any woman who comes, this is like super free. You can do this. These are all things that are very easy for any woman to do. I want to talk about some foods that really, really help with this kind of food situation. Now, fats, women, ladies, have you ever heard of Mark Hyman, Dr. Mark Hyman? He coined the phrase, fat doesn't make you fatty. He wrote a whole book on it. If you've not heard of Mark Hyman, jump into the library, jump on his books. He's a genius. He's created entire food movements. You know, I couldn't even begin to start where he's really done some incredible things. Food is your friend. Food is the thing that becomes us. It becomes our organs, it becomes our skin, it becomes our blood, it becomes our tissue, it becomes our bones, it becomes every part of us. So understanding these foods, and I'm going to list these out, these are some of the great ones. So the first thing is avocados, asparagus, anything in the sulfur containing vegetable group, the cruciferous vegetables, particularly broccoli and broccoli sprouts, dark leafy greens. Key. If you're not eating dark leafy greens every day, find a way. Cook them, saute them, put them in salads, put them in soups. I'm not a huge fan of cold smoothies. We're going to talk about that on another day. But if that's the only way you can get it down, then of course get it down that way. Small amounts of beans. Again, beans are very high in carbohydrate. They are high in fiber. They're fantastic. If you tolerate beans, if your constitution tolerates beans, beans are good, and also eggs. So these are some of the really high nutrient dense foods that are super powerful in helping to regulate moods through nutrient density. Now, I want to talk about this element of bravery that I brought up just a second ago. In this stage of life, gone are the days where you just go to your dentist once, maybe twice a year, go to your gynecologist once a year, and you go to your primary care doctor once a year. Gone are those days. We live in an incredibly toxic world. We live in a very fast-paced, modern, global economy. We live in a crazy pandemic that who knows when this is, we're going to go back to some kind of sanity and normalcy, new normalcy. And not to mention that, but women are doing more, living longer, and we're the glue of the families, right? So having said all this, we have to, once we hit 40, become very active participants in our health. Super active. That means we have to maybe sometimes do things that go above and beyond what's being told to us by our doctors. Because let's face it, cutting edge science doesn't hit doctors. It become mainstream for 7 to 10 years after something's been discovered and put into play. So what I will say about this is one of the things you can do in terms of stepping into bravery is testing. Testing is enormously important. And I have a whole webinar on this that I'm not going to go into now. But testing is one of those elements, ladies, that is super, super important. And this is something I talk about in day 3 of the masterclass is testing. Now, one of the things that I'm a huge believer in is women understanding a little bit about how the body works. Why this is important is because if you learn a little bit of how your body works, then you can have a more informed conversation with your healthcare provider or your healer or whoever you go to, and you can start to recognize within you when things start to go awry and they're just little whispers. It's a lot easier to deal with the little whispers when they're just little whispers before they become big giant thuds in the arm, or God forbid, like a conk against the wall, because that's how they become. They become big, intense, crazy things. So through testing, I want to talk about testing. There's a test that I do in my practice, and I use this test developed by a lab, Precision Analyticals, called the Dutch test. It's a dried urine test. It sounds gross, sounds intense, sounds involved. It's not anything like what you do in the doctor's office. You do it in the privacy of your own home, and it's really amazing. And this goes above and beyond saliva test and also blood test. So if you're not familiar with this test, I implore you, I beg of you, I encourage you to go look up this test, go figure out if you probably haven't had this test. Most doctors don't do it. It's not covered under insurance. So this is going to be an added expense on top of what you pay for insurance. But let me tell you, it's worth it. And one of the major ways that it's worth it is it helps whoever's reading the test, and then thereby helping you. It helps us understand how well a woman is methylating. It's a big word, big kind of scientific word. And it's just a fancy word for molecules changing from one structure to another structure. And this change, which I'm not going to go into because who cares, it's really boring. This change is really important because what it does is it's part of the messenger. So we talk about hormones being messenger. These molecules actually shift and become part of the system that helps the gears. If we think about our body as like a series of gears, so you've got the gears in your brain, you've got the gears in your throat, you've got the gears in your chest, you've got the gears in your gut, you've got your gears down lower in your reproductive system. It's a giant gear system. And that gear system doesn't just miraculously work. It works because it's all interconnected. And one of the big elements that helps regulate and make sure that everything is working is this process of methylation. Now, why am I going into this? Because how well a woman methylates is directly correlated with how she feels, how she functions, and therefore, i.e., how she feels. Again, I'm going back to rage, depression, and anxiety. So, methylation is a component that is responsible for all these different parts: DNA production, neurotransmitter production, detoxification process, liver health, huge in hormones. Liver health is everything. And if you're not eating the foods, if your body's assimilating those vitamins and nutrients, and if you're not able to send them all over through part of this is through the methylation process, and if you're not getting the right kinds of nutrients, the right amounts of nutrients, B vitamins are essential for this methylation process. If you're not taking B vitamins, if you're not assimilating B vitamins, then you're likely not packaging estrogen and expelling it efficiently and effectively. Another element is histamine. Histamine imbalance is another element that is directly correlated to methylation. Estrogen metabolism, the metabolization of estrogen, fat metabolism, detoxification, I talked about that. Eye health, that's another one. How healthy your eyes are. If you are someone whose eyes, you feel your eyes getting, having like an overnight, like getting worse, I really encourage you to get your vitamin levels checked, and also to find out how well you're methylating. Again, this test is incredible. This is a component in my program, the Art of Mastery. It's a VIP component where we add this in. So that's why I'm talking about this today. So all of this is really important, and all of this is where, as we gather time and our body starts to feel the effects of this hormonal cascade happening, this is where methylation and understanding what your body is doing in real time over the course of around 36 hours through testing, you can get a lot of information. Then you know exactly what to target. And I'll say that again. When you test properly, you get really solid results. You have a practitioner who knows how to read the test and knows how to guide you with the most important steps. Whether we begin with, we always want to be strong in food, but then there's also the nutrient levels, the vitamin and mineral levels above and beyond food. And then of course we've got herbals and botanicals. Those are all huge, important aspects of this as well. But going back to rage, anxiety, depression, another element of food that I didn't talk about because it warrants its own element here is protein, ladies. I can't tell you how many women have said to me, I'm starting to gain weight. My doctors told me to reduce calories. I already eat, only 12 to 1400. I limit myself to 12 to 1400 calories a day. I'm still gaining weight. So I've decided to go vegan, or I've decided to go vegetarian. And I can't tell you enough. If you're over 40 and you haven't been a vegetarian or a vegan for roughly 10 or 15 years, and you're eating really incredible foods and testing your vitamin levels, this is not the answer. This will likely make you feel worse. It might indeed make you thinner, but at the cost of tossing your hormones out of harmony even more than they already are as they begin to shift, as you begin to make more estrogen through adipose tissue and your adrenal glands as opposed to your ovaries. This is the shift we're feeling in our 40s, ladies. So if we start to take away the foods that are really chock full of amino acids and super high nutrient dense food, animal protein is the most nutrient dense food on the planet, pound, by weight, in terms of weight. So, which is not to downplay vegetables. If anybody's following me on any of the social media channels and you actually see what I make for dinner, I always have a protein, but I've always got a massive amount of vegetables. Vegetables should be a huge part of the diet. Almost 3/4 is what I would say. More like, more like 2/3. And then the other third being protein and fat, of course. But if you've taken Feeding Over 40, you would know this. So I'm gonna take a break there. I'm gonna see what Kristen has because she's always got amazing questions. Kristen,
You put me on the spot here.
if you don't, I can keep going, but I know you always have really great questions. Or
I mean, I'm going to go back actually to something that you said earlier. You talked about gathering your food. And I wanted you to kind of go into what you mean by that because it's not a word that we use very often in our society today when we talk about getting our food. Because when I hear gathering, I think of like going out and picking mushrooms and berries and
That's a great point. And I choose that word specifically. I choose most of my words. I would like to think I choose all my words specifically, but I think a lot of it just sort of comes out. When I say gather, okay, ladies, look, I am not a forager. I'm just going to say that right now. Like I can pretend to grow a lot of my own food. I do grow a little teeny tiny bit out of enjoyment and out of I have the space. I don't live in an apartment in Manhattan anymore, so I do have the opportunity to actually grow some of my own food, but it's a very, very small percentage, and I don't forage. I'm just going to say my version of foraging is going to the farmer's market and foraging off of their tables. Okay. That's my idea of foraging. I don't have that level of expertise. I also just moved to a new state halfway across the country, way farther south from where I am. Vegetation looks totally different here. What's grown here is completely different. I experienced, dark leafy greens that are way different than what I ate in New York. So in some ways I've broadened my palate, and in some ways I've lost a couple of things that are really only grown up north. Like we used to eat fiddlehead ferns and things like that in the spring, and I don't really eat those. They're not really, I haven't found them down here if they're grown down here. But at any rate, when I say gather, what I mean is to buy food in its most natural state that is not prepackaged. Because if a food is packaged, you better believe it has a very strong carbon footprint. It's had to travel, and that is partly why it is packaged. Now, sometimes packaging has to do with keeping it from getting damaged, but a lot of times it's packaged because it needs to travel, and it's possibly being ripened in a synthetic way, not vine ripened, or earth ripened, however the food, whatever kind of food it is, within its most natural state through the elements of the earth, the air, the water, and the sun. So when I say gather, I mean really truly go to multiple places and gather the food that you enjoy, the food that's nutrient dense, and the food that you're able to touch with your hands and smell. If you can smell the earth, the sun, the sea in your food, then that's what you should be eating. If it's wrapped in plastic and you can't touch it and you can't smell it, I would encourage you, if that's the only way you can eat vegetables, then by God, it's better than not eating vegetables at all. But if there's a way for you to actually purchase food that's grown as close to your local, house, your neighborhood as possible, that's fantastic. And on top of that, if you can do it through farmers who really believe in sustainable agriculture and the organic way of agriculture, meaning regenerative soil, growing crops in between other crops, not growing the same crops every year. Like again, I'm American, Kristen's American, we live in America. What Americans generally eat is tomatoes and lettuce and onions on hamburgers, and tomatoes and onions and garlic and pasta sauce, and a lot of potatoes and fried food. I'm saying gather your food from not only a variety of places, but a variety of kinds of food. And when you gather your own food, when you make an effort to actually get different foods and prepare them, you create diversity in your diet, diversity in your cells, and diversity in your microbiome, which inherently will keep you healthier so that you can stay out of the hospital, stay out of having to have a diagnosis, and stay out of, having to feel depression, anxiety, and rage.
I'm going to ask you another question. This is probably going to be a tough one.
I love it.
I know you're big on eating animal protein, but let's say that, I am a newly vegan or newly vegetarian person, and I am doing this for ethical reasons. So I am not going to be eating animal proteins, period. How would you handle that?
Well, how would I handle that? Like, I probably wouldn't work with that person because, I mean, I would try.
Yeah, I just wondered if there's other things they could do.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
Okay, great point. So there are certain certain foods in the kingdom, in the macrocosmos of our kingdom, right? There are foods that are nutrient dense that will help to fill the gaps, but I want to go on the record by saying that nothing replaces animal protein. No supplement, no powder, no green juice, or, anything like that. But there are some things that are really important. So I would say the sea vegetables, so seaweed and algae, are hugely nutrient dense, and they do have a fair amount of protein, although very different structurally than animal protein. It does make a big difference. So I'm talking spirulina, chlorella, all the different those are algae, all the different seaweeds in the sea vegetable kingdom. So kombu, nori, kelp, all of those. So I would definitely include all of those on a daily basis. That's number one. I would not eat tons and tons of soy. That's not a sustainable, clean protein, especially in this country. So my advice to women who are vegan or vegetarian is to eat a small amount of soy, but not a large amount of soy. It's not actually beneficial, especially as you age. The second thing I would recommend that women who are vegan or vegetarian eat is the fungi, the mushroom and fungi kingdom. Also very nutrient dense and structurally very different than any other vegetable, fruit, plant, animal, whether walk or fly or swim. So those are the things I would do. And then the last thing I would do is I would make sure that you are religious about testing, because you will likely be low in iron or low in ferritin, and that's going to really alter hormone production. You are likely going to be deficient in B vitamins. That is going to, as I talked about earlier, that's really going to hinder how your body functions. And in terms of maintaining enough muscle mass in order to keep your bones healthy. So again, ladies, I'm always talking about, so I couldn't care less what the outline of a woman's body looks like. I mean, of course I love looking at beautiful bodies. I'm not going to lie. But when I talk about what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about how much your stomach sticks out or how, muscular you are. I'm talking about a ratio, a harmony within the body for vitality, longevity, and inner strength, wisdom, and balanced feeling inside. So when I talk about muscles, the way to maintain muscle mass as you age is to eat protein and to lift weights. So it's kind of hard to do that if you're not eating animal protein. So your muscles will atrophy. And this is where there is nothing like, I mean, you would have to take very targeted amino acids to help your body replenish that element of muscle. You want to maintain muscle mass because, again, bone strength is partly dependent on muscle mass. How strong our bones are is dependent on how strong our muscles and connective tissue are. And those things are made from collagen, and the greatest source of collagen is animals. Animals in the sea, animals on the land, animals in the sky.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What else? Any other good questions? That's a great question.
I think I think it'd probably be good if you go into a little bit more of, in addition to food, how would you support in midlife these anxiety, rage, and depression? Because I think you were on a roll with that when you stopped for
I think I was too.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what's important to understand about these three elements in midlife is they are a dialogue your body's trying to have with you. It's always a dialogue of how you're feeling internally versus what's happening externally. And in the masterclass, I talk about the third eye, which is the pineal gland, which is connected to the pineal gland in the body. And the third eye is it's the sixth chakra of the body, and how to support this chakra in the body. And one of the elements of the third eye that I think is so amazing, so interesting to me, is how the perception of the outside world actually triggers a cascade on the inside world, and vice versa. How you feel on the inside is the lens by which you're actually perceiving your external world. So, in understanding these emotions that you're feeling, there's always a physiological component to emotions, and the same is true of physiology. There's always an emotional component. If you're in pain, that's going to cause an emotional component, whether that emotion, whether you're cognizant of it or not. We are not in pain for no reason. Pain comes to us, and pain, when I say pain, it doesn't necessarily mean like, sharp shooting pain, but any sort of pain, whether emotional pain, trauma from an incident, or like you actually have a physical pain in your body. These pains are a dialogue. So in midlife, this dialogue is really important. It's really showing you from a physiological sense, how are things around you in your life? How is your relationship with your partner? As your body is changing, are you connecting with people around you and really helping yourself and guiding yourself through this stage of life? And if you're not, how could you be helpful to other women by reaching out to them and saying, look, I'm desiring help, men or women, really. I like to think women heal women. That's one of my mottos. So that's what I often say is women heal women, and that's the female. But what is interesting to me is the internal and external world are intimately connected. So when there's anger, rage, or anxiety, there's something internally, but usually there's also something external that's also connected in there. So whether that be, you're burning the candle at both ends, whether that be there's a disconnect between you and your partner, whether it be that you and your partner like seem to be going like this instead of going like this. Is there a relationship in your life? Maybe you're estranged from an aunt or a cousin or a sister or a mother or a brother or something, or your father. Maybe there's an estrangement that needs to be kind of cleaned up. Maybe you need to set some boundaries in your life. Maybe you need to prioritize more of you, and then kind of somehow find that time. And what I hear from women all the time, oh, this is happening. I have an age, I just got done, as many of you know, I just got done taking care of my mom, who was doing amazingly and really stepped up and did a lot of the care for herself. But for 4.5 weeks, I was living with my mom and still running a business, still a mother of 2 children, still a wife, and still trying to connect with her as her daughter, but also as someone caring for her. So that was a huge element added to my plate. Unexpected, I will say, as well. And what I learned from that is I didn't gain any more hours in the day. My business couldn't just come to a halt. I mean, it could have, but I chose for my business not to just come to a halt. And I chose to find a more unconventional way to have a relationship with my children via the Zoom. And then my husband and I found ways to still maintain a strong relationship. He was a springboard for when things got frustrated, and also just, unconventional ways of being married for 4.5 weeks and not being in the same state. Like, this all took a concerted effort on my part and on my mother's part, albeit she was amazing, to redefine what a modern 49-year-old woman's life and business looks like. And was it easy? No. A couple of times I'm on the phone with Kristen trying to talk about business as tears are coming down my face. But the point of this is I didn't gather any more time, and I added a whole nother element to my life. So there's never the right time to begin to step into this level of bravery. There's never going to be the perfect time where everything lines up and it's just just perfect and it all works out and you don't feel stressed. Learning to dance with your stress, learning to prioritize yourself in the same way that you prioritize your partner, your job, and your children, if you have any, or whatever it is in your life that you sort of put up high on the high priorities. These are all very important, and we all as human beings have the same amount of time. Time isn't the determining factor, but doing something over time is what helps someone change their life. Okay? You can't get better in the same environment that you're experiencing the symptom or the pain or the whatever. You actually have to examine what you're doing, examining what you're not doing, and then prioritize allotting money, resources, and or time. Some of that, or likely a little bit of all of those. So that's where this element of rage, depression, and anxiety, they come from women burning our candles at some way or another, to the point where the physical body is speaking to the emotional body. And those bodies are connected through the inner, the triangle of the energy, the physiology, and the emotional, or like emotional, spiritual. They're all connected and they speak in this very kind of interconnected unity kind of language. And I think to understand that when you feel this way, when you're having these signs and symptoms, sometimes it's very simple. Sometimes it's just, oh, this thing that I do every week, I need to let go of that and do something else. I need to take those 3 hours and allot them to me, for example. Or maybe it's getting up 20 minutes early. No one likes to get up a little bit earlier, but if you get up 20 minutes earlier, yes, you can make your lunch at work so that you're not eating industrial seed oils and low quality food at lunch. You can do it. Now, whether you want to do it, whether you prioritize doing it, that's a different story. But this is where, when we invest in ourselves through time, energy, and money, or some version of all of those, you can shift the needle. If I can do it, you can do it. I had a sick mother. I have 2 boys. I have like one big business and one sort of side business of my big business. And I'm a wife and a mother. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I don't have staff. There's no staff here making my life. I'm cooking dinner. My husband and I are cooking dinner. There's no nanny shuttling my kids around. Like, we're doing it, right? So it's just a matter of priorities, okay? And that's the thing that I think is really important. And that's the thing I want every woman to know. It's like, even if you feel like you can barely get off the couch, you can do this. Because if I can do it, you can do it. All right, that was my pep talk to the ladies out there. But I think that's the thing to understand about rage, anxiety, and depression is it's a dialogue. What are you going to do with that dialogue? Are you going to ignore it? Are you going to caffeinate it? Are you going to ambient it, thinking that you just need to sleep? And if you just took an Ambien, then you could sleep. I don't know. Here's the thing. What I do know is it doesn't get better as you age. It's a sign and symptom, and what starts out as being a small thing turns into a little bit bigger, turns into your immune system starting to be compromised, turns into, now we're talking about a more involved situation. And like, I don't want to paint the most dire picture, but I am going to be realistic, because this isn't about sugarcoating it. This is about telling it like it is, so that, as the name says, ladies, we can be in harmony with ourselves, our energy, and our lives.
Great.
Anything else, Kristen?
I don't think I have any questions, because I had a question, but you answered it there
I did?
at the end. Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
So
I feel like right now, ladies, I want to this particular episode of Harmony TV is going to be brought to you by, because I love when radio shows and things like that, podcasts and things. This is inspired and brought to you by my Art of Mastery course that's coming up. It's a 6-week course. It begins this weekend. The welcome call is Saturday. The first official call of Harmony TV, of the Art of Mastery, we're on Harmony TV, is on Monday night. So I'm keeping the card open through the weekend up until our first call on Monday. And this course, I'm going to give you a little bit about the course. So if you are not wanting to hear about the course, I wish you well. Please come and check out next week's Harmony TV. I'm here putting out the free content for everyone. But if you're interested, if you want to carry this conversation further, now I'm going to talk about my course. So here's what I want to tell you about the course. It's 6 weeks. I'm going to give you a few practicals, and then I'm going to give you like the real deal. It's 6 weeks. It is $2,999. It is a Facebook group. It is one private call with me, and then there are 5 group calls together. Now, the reason I'm telling you about this is because this program has changed so many women's lives. I've run this program 3 times in, as I told you, different names, different iterations. And what I can say from you is that women have written testimonials, video testimonials. If you are someone who is suffering from, or you find yourself having to think about and using a lot of energy around anxiety, depression, rage, hot flashes, sleep issues, are you having trouble getting to sleep, staying asleep, waking up rested? If you find yourself gaining massive amounts of weight, we talked about weight in an earlier episode. The body creates mass in order to hold toxins away from organs, right? This course is for you. You have accountability, you have community and sisterhood, and you have private and group coaching with me. I cannot tell you how having someone on your team that if you choose to do testing or you don't, but you have me in your pocket for 6 weeks. You have me to answer your questions. You have me to brainstorm with you. You have me to set up protocols for you. You have me. Not only that, you're going to learn so much about your body. You're going to have a workbook that is like a textbook that you will have forever. And you will have the knowledge, even if you can't implement it in those 6 weeks, you will have the course and the knowledge forever. Some women, one of the women who was in the second version of the course, said it took her roughly 5 months to integrate all the things she needed to do, but she doesn't even remember what life was like before. And that is a testament to her commitment to herself and her commitment to knowing that it's not about doing all the things at once, but it's about investing in yourself in this one element and then having the knowledge and information so that you can have the transformation and the integration over time. I don't give you crazy stuff to buy. This isn't like you were going to go to the ends of the earth to find things. What I will do is I will hold you accountable. I will teach you how to collect data for yourself that is actionable and helpful. And then I will give you actual protocols to help you help yourself, because that is who you are. You are your own greatest healer. You are the person inhabiting this vessel for the rest of your life. Let's make it amazing. Let's make it strong. Let's make it fierce. Let's make it dynamic. And certainly let's make it such that you can magnetize all the things, experiences, abundance, people, whatever you want, to you. So through this course, we begin on Monday, as I said. The link is down below in the comments. Kristen's put the link up because I can see it. If you have questions, feel free to DM me, or you can send me an email, assistant@michelleaspinwall.com. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love these weekly TV episodes. If you have questions that you want me to answer, join my free Facebook group, or feel free to send me a question and I will gather the questions and do sessions like this, because this came from my Hormone Mastery Over 40 Facebook group. All right, ladies. Kristen, thank you so much. I will see you in the group or next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.